name is Nicholas Perombelon. I studied in Aberdeen University quite some time ago, from 1983 to 1987. I obtained a degree in biochemistry at the university. And now I am living and working in Brussels in Belgium in the pharmaceutical industry for Pfizer on the development and licensure of vaccines.
Very interesting, thank you. And why did you choose to study at the University of Aberdeen in the first place?
So I chose Aberdeen because, well, I grew up in Scotland, in Dundee. So I wanted to stay in Scotland. And then on visiting the different universities in Scotland, I believed that Aberdeen was really a good teaching university. It had a really good reputation from that perspective. And then one of the things I think was really beneficial for me was at Aberdeen, there was the opportunity with the bursary competition to stay at the university prior to actually join it, and then sort of spend some time living in the dormitories and everything, halls of residence, and doing exams there and meeting students or fellow future students. So that gave you a very good experience of what life would be like in Aberdeen.
That's very interesting, thank you. And why did you choose to study biochemistry? And what something that you enjoy about this course?
So I chose biochemistry mainly because I was really interested in the biological sciences and understanding the fundamentals of how we work and the world works. So understanding really the chemistry that drives us to do things, or animals to do things, or plants to do things. It's really trying to understand that. And then ultimately, as you can see in my career development, how that can be controlled and modified to the benefit of the person or the world or the animals, etc.
Interesting. And apart from your education, what were some of your favorite memories from Aberdeen?
I think, I mean, it's so. I knew Aberdeen to a certain extent, having grown up in Dundee, but it was, I think, a really nice experience as a sort of a young adult, really sort of going through that phase of my life. And Aberdeen, I think, was a different city from Dundee for sure. And it was sort of a really interesting city culturally. So yeah, it was just a really good time from that perspective.
I see. And what do you think some of the core skills or values that you gained at the university?
Yeah, so I think obviously, as time goes on, what I learned in terms of absolute content in the 1980s has no real relevance to, well, very little relevance today in terms of science, yeah? But what really does have a lot of relevance is the teaching of the scientific approach and the analytical approach to looking at problems and trying to work out solutions. And that was, I think, the great foundation that I learned at Aberdeen.
Interesting. And did you attend any student societies or clubs, maybe play some sports?
So I think the main one maybe to mention is the Cinema Society at the university at the time. There were two film societies. One was a Cinema Society, and I was a member and president of that society. And I think what was really interesting about that experience is one, I really love films and watching films. Two, I was really learning, certainly when I was the president, learning how to manage expectations of, the importance of this society over others and getting the funding for the society, getting the membership, choosing the films. All of that, I think, was a great experience of working and sort of being part of the society. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And when you were a student, what were your career aspirations? What did you want to do once you grow up?
So I think, having that sort of science education, what I really wanted to do was then be able to communicate that. So I've always been interested in communication and learning science. So it's the ability to communicate the science that I learned. And I think that's what I wanted to do with my biochemistry. And essentially, that's what I do in my current job.
Interesting. And did you have any internships or part-time jobs, maybe volunteering experience as a student?
Relevant to my studies, I did do an internship over the summer in a university laboratory in France. And I think that sort of experience is really useful. I think looking back, if I'd done some experience in the pharmaceutical industry, that would have been really very useful and given me a clear understanding of what can be achieved in the pharmaceutical industry. But I think the university experience was really interesting.
Interesting. And what would be your advice for students who try to get internships in pharmaceutical industry or anything related to that? How to stand out? How to stand out?
I think it's to be very open-minded and very willing to learn and be very sort of active in sort of volunteering to do activities. That sort of enthusiasm is something that we're looking for. And I think then that analytical mindset, that ability to sort of use your mind to sort of get to solutions. I think that if you can demonstrate that, that's really important.
Interesting. And what is Pfizer? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, Pfizer, it's one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. I mean, the best thing is for people to look at the Pfizer website. I worked more in the area of vaccines, so they have lots of different vaccines commercialized, which we believe is really important in terms of public health. Yeah, I encourage people to look at the Pfizer website to get more information on Pfizer itself.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And what is your current role and responsibilities? And how did it change with the time? What were your career progression?
Yeah. So my current role is I lead a team of regulatory scientists working on obtaining the licensure and maintaining the licensure of pneumococcal conjugate vaccines and Lyme vaccines. And I've been in that sort of role either as a team lead, which I'm now, or as an individual contributor for probably the last 15 or plus years. So this is something I've been working in a long time. Prior to that, I worked in clinical development as a medical writer. So it's always been in the context of taking the science and communicating it either through to the clinical community or through to the regulatory agencies.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And could you please walk us through your day-to-day routine? What do you do once you're at work?
Yeah, it's not super exciting in a way. So it's a lot of responding to emails and Teams chats, joining a lot of matrix team meetings. So that's meetings with a lot of different functions that have one common objective and trying to work through and advance towards that common objective, or a lot of individual meetings, either with my direct reports or with my manager, or with peers and colleagues, and trying to help advance the different projects that we have. So it's a lot of that, on the day-to-day basis. Otherwise, yeah, I'll attend internal meetings, and I will attend conferences as well, that sort of thing.
Interesting. Thank you. And what was your proudest moment in your career? Maybe a few moments.
I think one of the things that professionally I look back and I think was a really nice achievement was actually the licensure in the US of the Cervarix HPV vaccine I worked on while I was at JSK. And there I worked on this product from the submission of the file right at the start to the US FDA right through to the approval. And I supported the preparation and the sort of VRPAC meeting activities that we did to obtain that licensure. And that was really, I think, a personal achievement from my perspective.
That's impressive. And what were some of the challenges that you faced throughout your career, and how did you tackle them?
I think it's sort of there are challenges in terms of professional activities. And I think there, I mean, this is one of the things when you're working in the pharmaceutical industry, you will have to sort of look through and sort of understand that there are decisions taken for the benefit of the company that might not fit absolutely your project, and you might then see your project not prioritized. And that I think has been always a challenge when that happens. But I think you understand that there are choices to be made, and this is where the pharmaceutical industry management has to make those choices, and you have to assume they make the right choice.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And can you share any books or resources that have been particularly beneficial in your career, and you think they might benefit our students as well?
Yeah, I think if you're really interested in a career in the pharmaceutical industry, in the regulatory sciences field, I would certainly look at the FDA and EMA websites. There's sort of a sort of a huge source of information on the sort of regulatory environment and how we sort of globally actually manage sort of the development and licensure of medical products. So I think that if you're interested in regulatory sciences, that would be a go-to place for me.
Interesting. And do you think networking is important in your industry, in your type of work?
I think yes, yeah. I mean, it's really important to have a network of colleagues and
Yeah.
peers, because I think, I mean, certainly in when you're in medical development, this is not an individual activity. This is really a team activity. So it's really important to be able to reach out and have contacts with the people that can help you as a team member, a team leader to advance your objectives.
Interesting. And maybe you have one advice for students trying to like improve their like networking skills or try to understand how to excel in it.
I think successful networking is really making sure that you understand what you want to obtain from the person and also understand what you have to offer the person. It has to be, you have to be able to have that dialogue. In this context, professionally, to make sure that it is a productive dialogue from both sides.
Yeah, interesting, thank you. And what would be your advice for students who are almost finished with their degrees, yes, but struggle to transition from academia to professional world? Maybe they didn't get internships, maybe they struggle with something else. What would be your advice?
Yeah. So I think if you want to get into the pharmaceutical industry, uh, in early in your career, it's probably going to be easier to get into the smaller companies or the contract research organizations rather than the initially large pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer. Uh, I mean, large pharmaceutical companies, if you're not getting through an internship, certainly look at the
Mhm.
opportunities for internship. But otherwise, I think they'll be looking for people with experience, which is the sort of thing you can certainly gain in a contract research organization or a smaller pharmaceutical company.
Interesting. And since you were when you were a student, yes, did you manage to make many friends? And you are you still in touch with any of students from University of Aberdeen?
Yeah, I keep in touch with some of the colleagues and some of, well, friends that I worked with or studied with and then sort of lived with. Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of these contacts can really remain with you for a long, long time.
A lot of students struggle with stress. What is your advice for students to tackle this issue?
Um, I think if you're feeling stressed about something, I think it's really to think through. I mean, how you gain your self confidence back, and there I think it's to understand what are your capabilities and to achieve the goal that you're sort of looking at. And when you sort of have a deeper understanding of that, hopefully you can gain your self confidence that you can achieve the goal you want to set, or you can reset it to make it a more achievable goal.
Okay, interesting. And just two more questions. How do you manage your time effectively?
I think time management, I think, can be a real challenge when you're, you have a lot of activities.
Mhm.
So one of the things I do is I really look at making sure I prioritize my work into really the things that are important and urgent, and I deprioritize the things that are not so important and not urgent. So I really use this is the concept of the Eisenhower grid. I really use that sort of approach to work out what are my priorities, and then I focus in on them.
Interesting, interesting. And the last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self? Or maybe you would change something about your uh, time as a student.
Yeah. I don't think I would have changed anything as my time as a student. I think, looking back, I think it's really to have that self confidence, to be open to change, because change is going to happen. Yeah. The world is changing. You will be changing. So I think it's being open to change and building up your self confidence in that. And then you will succeed. Yeah.
Hmm.
What I think is really important is making sure you're clear on the sort of what you want to achieve, trying to define your goals, and then working out what you need to do to achieve those goals. And that I think can give you the self confidence to work things through. And that, yeah, that's the advice I would like to give myself looking back.